When you look at BSA, they are a monumental brand with an incredible history. Starting out in the 1900s, they made bikes, they made guns, and throughout the 50s, they were actually the biggest motorcycle manufacturer in the world. I've never had the chance to ride any originals, but my dad has had, well, he's had more bikes than I've had hot dinners. And the only bike he ever loved was a BSA Gold Star. I hear about it every time I talk to him. So to be able to ride this, the latest generation BSA Gold Star, well, it's been a blast. So before we get started, this is not going to be like the original BSA Gold Star. For starters, it's 2022. You're never going to be able to recreate that. This is a 650 single, so, well, 652cc to be precise. It produces 45 horsepower and 55 Newton meters of torque. Unlike the original, it's a 5-speed gearbox, and after talking to BSA CEO earlier, they've been working really hard on making that single cylinder engine just as smooth as possible, really balanced and really usable. I asked him why they didn't bother with a twin, and he said, well, why would we? It was pretty simple really, and to be honest, sitting and looking at it now, it does make sense. When you look at that silhouette, they've kept it true to the original. We had a original model here, and to be honest, they look so similar. When you got them side by side, the lines all match up, how the clocks sit, it all matches up, and it really does look incredible. If modern classics are your thing, like proper modern classics, then, well, this hits the nail on the head. Like everything from the mudguard to that tail unit to the colour schemes, it just sort of oozes that 50s and 60s spirit that, well, that everyone loves. A couple of things I like about it is that even though this is not a premium bike by any means of the imagination, it's still got some pretty premium bits on it. It's got dual ABS for starters, it's got Brembo logos on them little calipers, and it's also got Pirelli rubber too, which is pretty impressive. And it's impressive because of the price point. When BSA released this last year, I was worried because Royal Enfield have got such a good package in their Interceptor at such an incredible price. I thought it'd be really difficult to get a brand new bike and a brand new platform close to that. If it's edging higher, you're getting into sort of Triumph territory there, and that's a dangerous game to be playing if the bike doesn't back it up. But BSA have revealed the prices for this. They start at £6,500, and then they go up to £6,800 and £7,000 for different colour schemes, which in today's age is incredible, especially when you look at inflation and how much bike prices have gone up even in the past year. It's a really good price point to be sitting in, and you do get a lot of bike for your money. You get a big proper metal machine, you don't get that plastic, you don't get that tackiness. It looks proper, and with a 213 kilogram wet weight as well, it does feel proper as well. Let's talk a bit about the ride. The old BSA Gold Stars, they were legendary. They were on Daytonas, Isle of Mans. They were the pinnacle of their day. They were made for going fast. People would absolutely go to town on them. And let's just get this straight. This bike is not one of them. It's not going to break any speed records, although if you are fans of the old school BSA, you remember the old days, it will do a ton. It's worth remembering that this is a modern classic. We've been riding it today at Millbrook, so this is a closed testing facility, but to be honest, the roads are identical to what you usually get in the UK. They're bumpy, there's holes everywhere. They've made it as authentic as possible. From the first initial ride, the thing that got me was, for starters, the engine. Now, single cylinders are not renowned for being smooth, and they've been working really hard on just making this a clinical, easy and delicate machine, especially down low. And that engine is actually really nice. It's super smooth. So the torque curve is very, very flat. From sort of 3,500, it just picks up so gently and so smoothly. And then as it sort of drops off, the power picks up as well. So you do get a really, really gentle ride up until about 6,000 RPM. And it does get fairly peaky as well. Like, if you just jumped on that and you didn't know, you'd probably think it had a bit more than what the power figures suggest. On top of that, the clutch is really nice and light. The throttle connection was a lot smoother than I anticipated, and to be honest, the gearbox is actually quite pleasant as well. Although the gear selector is a little bit loose, it's a really good package overall. And the same with the handling. My dad has always told me, nah, forget about the modern stuff. You jump on one of the BSA Gold Stars and it will handle like nothing you've ever felt. And to be honest, it did surprise me how well this thing handled. I've got to say, it's not the easiest thing to do at slow speed. It's really, really low. The seat height's really low. The centre of gravity is low, but because the rake's kicked out quite high, it's got quite a long wheelbase. It's not the most agile thing if you nip around London traffic, but when you get going a bit, it's really, really stable. And to be honest, it's a lot sportier than its looks and its appeal and, well, everything really suggests. It really did surprise me. Sure, you're not going to be knee down everywhere and doing all that craziness. That never even existed when these bikes were the big thing. If you're sort of a bit older and you miss those glory days, you want something that's newer and reliable, this thing will still hustle, it will still move, and to be honest, it was much more planted and much more capable than I anticipated. It's worth mentioning as well that although the brakes are Brembo, they're not the most powerful things in the world, but they do offer a fair amount of stopping. I did have a little bit of an issue with the ABS. They said they've been working hard to reduce the intrusion, and to be honest, it doesn't intrude that much at all, but when it does, it really does hit hard. So that was sort of one thing I wasn't a particular fan of. Another thing I didn't like about it is, although the detailing on it is lovely, there are a few things in the cockpit that I'd love to change. So it's got a really nice twin tacho, and in the middle, above the light, is a separate LCD dash, but you can't see it when there's any sunlight. It's just angled a bit too wrong for me, and to be honest, the switch gears as well, where the rest of the bike looks so nice and so metal and so finished, they just look a bit plasticky and cheap. But considering the price point, I really can't blame that too much. For me, a modern classic has to hit a certain criteria. For starters, it's got to look the part. Can't look too modern, can't look too tacky, can't have too much plastic. Secondly, it's got to have some proper heritage behind it. It's got to have a bit of history, it's got to have some sort of story. Thirdly, it's got to be able to perform, especially when it's got a little bit of a sporty heritage. You know, you want to be able to have a bit of fun on it, and it's got to be usable, it's got to be comfy. And finally, it's got to have the right price point. It's safe to say, after riding this today, it really does hit all of them and exceeds them. I like what they've done. It's a bit different, it's a bit earlier. It's taking retro to a whole new level, and for a brand new platform and a brand new bike, I think it really is a great start from BSA. It's a great refresh on such an iconic brand. They say they've got loads lined up for the future. They've got more with this engine, for starters. They've got EVs coming. It's looking really exciting. They're going to start building these in the UK, and when you look at the state of biking in Britain, it's never looked so good, and I couldn't be happier about it.